Alright, hello people, I'm the dude and this is my rant review for Flying Swords of Dragon Gate. Otherwise known as probably my current favorite foreign martial arts film I've seen in as long as I can remember. It was really good. The short version, the story wasn't incomprehensible. It made sense. It was actually pretty good in spots. The choreography was great. The actors were pretty good, especially for this kind of movie. Usually they just have a few lines at a time and then they sword fight. This was actually pretty good. It looked really nice. The cinematography and everything, great. Really good movie. Flying Swords of Dragon Gate. The long version, gonna be spoilers. It's called Flying Swords because they're very acrobatic. Flying through the air and twirling their swords all over the place, and it all looks really stylish and really cool. And the last part, Dragon Gate, is where the final showdown happens. The place has got this really long-winded name, but the short version is Dragon Gate, and there's a sunken temple there. It's kind of like an Indiana Jones movie, mixed with a foreign martial arts film, mixed with like a romantic drama, because they all have to have romance in them. Yeah, there's a sunken palace there full of gold, and half the cast want to go after the gold, and the other half just want to kill each other. There's a whole bunch of different characters with subplots, and they're all intertwined. They all have their own motivations, but some of them are allied, some of them aren't, some of them, reverse their alliances and turn on each other, and so it's really cool. As far as the martial arts go, they all have their own kind of style, right? They all have their own thing. The main villain is probably my favorite. Let's see if I can find his name. Kun Shin? Is that how you say it? I think. My pronunciation's probably terrible, so you'll have to forgive me. In the movie, he's the prince, and he's also this thief who is, his name's called the Wind Blade, or the Blade of Wind, or something like that. Blade in the Wind, sorry. And, they look almost identical because they're the same actor in real life. But in the movie, he, turns out to be a lookalike. He looks like the prince, but, the prince is a badass. He's a beast. Not only is he royalty or whatever, but he can fight. His style is really interesting in that he can break weapons, solid, like, well-constructed, made of metal weapons, and use them as shrapnel. I don't know how he does that. They don't explain it. Maybe it's magic. I don't know. Maybe he's just really strong, but he'll shatter swords, and then the shrapnel will go flying at people and take them out. And whenever he gets in a sword fight with his own sword, it's got like detachable blades where they'll spin in the air like they're a flying dagger, and he like spins them on his sword. It's hard to describe, but like the sides of his sword will come apart and he'll spin them with his sword and fling them at people. It's really badass looking, and he's really good. And he's probably the second strongest in the movie, or maybe he's the strongest. I don't know. It's hard to tell because when he finally bites it, spoilers, the bad guy loses. Big surprise. At the end of the movie, it's 2-on-1, and he's kind of surrounded by a trap, these tripwire things that are razor sharp, and it's hard to tell if he was actually weaker than Jet Li. Jet Li's the hero, by the way, because like I said, it's a really awkward situation, but his fighting style is really, really cool to watch. He's constantly twirling these blades on the end of his sword and like flinging them at people and catching them and flinging them back. It's really badass. Jet Li, the main character, he's much less interesting as far as his style goes. He just has a sword and he fights people with it. But he's still Jet Li, and everyone in this movie is acrobatic as hell. They're all flying through the air like trapeze artists and flipping and cartwheeling and fighting in the air and stuff like that. Very, very cool looking. I guess the main characters, like I said, they all have their own thing. Jet Li wants to kill the prince because he doesn't like the officials that run the East and West Bureau of whatever city. I don't even think they say what city it is, honestly. But he wants to wipe them all out. That's his subplot. He literally wants to hunt them all down and kill them all. At the beginning of the movie, the first third of the movie is him killing off the East Bureau. He kills them all because apparently they're weak. They don't know how to fight, or they're not very good at fighting. So he chops through them, like they're nothing. And the last 2/3 of the movie is him going to the Dragon Inn, which is at Dragon's Gate, and trying to finish off the head of the West Bureau, the two heads. One of them is, let's see if I can get his name right. Su Wong Fan, I think. Is how you say that? Is that the right? Oh no, sorry. Is that him? I can't tell. It's hard to say. I think it's Xia Hui Liu. Is that how you say that? I think it's him. It doesn't matter. The names really don't matter. The second in command of the West Bureau, he uses 2 swords at a time, and he's only matched by Jet Li and the Prince. Everyone else he faces, he destroys them. And the scene where Jet Li finally beats him is really, really good. He uses like flying shrapnel against him, and uses his own swords against him. Kind of, it's really badass looking, but it's hard to describe. You just have to see the scene. And then obviously the head of the West Bureau is the Prince, which I'm not gonna spoil much of the last fight scene, but just know that it's really nice. There's also an even better scene before the finale, whatever, where the palace is sunken under sand, and the only way to get the palace revealed to get to the gold, which, like I said, half the cast are only there for the gold. They're treasure hunters or whatever. They just happen to be badass martial artists as well. Everyone, all of them. The only way to get the palace, or get to the palace, is to wait for this sandstorm that hits every 60 years. And the sandstorm finally hits. It's like this giant black tornado is what it is, and that's gonna uncover the palace. But when the hurricane hits, or tornado, sorry, Jet Li and Yu Hui, I don't know how you say his last name. The Prince, Jet Li and the Prince are fighting, and they get caught up in the tornado, right? Jet Li has a sword in this like chain. Before he had a sword on the end of the chain, and he was whipping that around and throwing it at him. But the Prince cut the sword off of it, so it's just a chain at this point. He latches the chain onto the Prince's hand, around his arm, and then they start flying through the tornado fighting. They're flying up the tornado attached by a chain, and they're sword fighting. It's definitely the climax of the movie, and it's as cool as it sounds. It's really badass. The real ending to the movie happens in the palace. The palace is uncovered, and the Prince... So let's see if I can remember all the characters. There's the 2 Tartars, who are... One's a woman who uses like a Xena warrior princess chakra looking thing, and the other one is this giant brutish dude with a massive axe and like this really cool looking shield. The thieves are Blade in the Wind, who uses like this wire thing. It's like a razor wire that's like attached to his wrists, and the other one uses daggers, but it's not just daggers. It can't be that simple. They've got like hooks attached to them at the end, and she can throw them and they'll connect into whatever, like stick into something. She can throw other daggers, use the hooks on the end to like wrap around each other and spin them in different directions, if that makes sense. She can also catch them in midair. So like if she throws one and throws another, the 2 hooks will catch, and she can like redirect them that way. Like send them different directions. It's fucking badass. It's really cool looking. No one is bland in this movie. None of their fighting styles are bland. They're really interesting. And then probably my favorite character in the entire movie is the maid. The maid throughout the entire movie has been this like helpless, you know, like hanger-on, where they have to protect her from all this stuff. And the officials first showed up because they were chasing her, but then it turned into the Prince versus Jet Li kind of thing, took over. But what they didn't know throughout the whole movie, big spoiler, is that the maid is actually working for the Prince. She's an assassin. She's a really good one. She's really, really good. Like, you know, martial artist. So the entire movie, she's been acting her ass off as like this helpless little flower, you know, that constantly needs everyone's protection. And she's been hanging on to Jet Li's pseudo-girlfriend, or at least the woman who wants to be his girlfriend, wife, whatever, I don't know. She's been hanging on to her in hopes that she would lead her to Jet Li, and she does. And at the end of the movie, she betrays the love interest, whatever the hell you want to call her, stabs her in the back like 8 times before she can even turn around, and then she goes after Jet Li. She like sabotages the path so they can't get back to Jet Li, and she wants to double team him, basically. She wants to fight, she wants to attack him from behind while the prince is there. So it's like 2-on-1. The problem is it doesn't quite work out that way. He gets warned beforehand, and he notices that she's no longer afraid of the prince. I didn't really notice it, but apparently it was subtle. I don't know, but she gave herself away, and they warned him, so he figured it out in time. But she's the one that keeps booby-trapping everything with these, like, tripwire things that are razor sharp. So, yeah, the whole last fight scene, she booby-traps this, like, walkway thing, this, like, makeshift wooden gantry thing with all the tripwires. So Jet Li and the prince have to fight on this thing with the razor wires everywhere, and what is her name? See if I can get her name right. Ling. Ling comes back, and Jet Li has to protect. So Ling is trying to protect Jet Li. Jet Li is trying to protect Ling. She's the love interest. They have to navigate the tripwire things, the razor wires, and the prince is there with his badass sword skills trying to kill them both. Oh, and he has a sword that can now cut anything. His new sword that he found on the ground in the palace, it can literally cut through any other weapon. Whenever Jet Li tries to fight him with his sword, it literally slices it to bits. So the odds are seriously stacked against him in that last fight, but it's really cool. It's just a great movie all around. I liked all the characters. None of them were pointless. None of them had no purpose. You could argue that the maid had no purpose other than, like, plot convenience early in the movie if she wasn't an assassin, but she was. So she had a very good purpose at the end of the movie. She showed that the prince was as smart as everyone thinks he is. Not only is he a badass martial artist, but he's also really cunning and strategic and all that. The rest of the movie, there's a lot of plot twists where they're using a password system to try and get the jump on Jet Li and his buddies, but they turn it against them. And they find out the password, trick them, and then ambush them dressed up as their own men. And just a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of really cool interrelationship things where, like, the Blade of the Wind, he's caught between two different women. The Tartar woman and the one with the knives, the hooked knives. And he ends up impostoring the prince. Sorry, not impostering. What is the word? Being an imposter and pretending to be the prince. That's how they ambush them late in the movie. And then at the end of the movie, he goes back, once the prince is dead, he goes back to the capital and poisons his mother. I think that's who that was. So I'm assuming she's the queen. I don't know, but he shows up impersonating the prince, poisons his mother, and takes over the government, basically. I guess. That's how it worked. Blade in the Wind. So his character was very important, and at the same time, really superfluous to the main plot. I mean, at the end of the day, he's the one that won. He's the one that literally is... He's now the prince of their government. He's 100% taken his place. But as far as the plot goes, he was just kind of there as entertainment value and for that impersonating thing. So, and then Jet Li at the end, he rides off trying to chase down Ling, the woman who loves him, because of her stab wounds. She got stabbed, like I said, she got ambushed by the maid, who no one knew was an assassin up until that point. I swear, she, like, lightning fast stabbed her in the back like 8 times with this sword that Ling gave her to protect herself. She stabbed her in the back with her own sword. And at the very end of the movie, after everything's said and done, she rides off because she doesn't want Jet Li to see her die. And Jet Li, of course, chases after her to go find her. You never get to see what happened. You don't get to see what happened to Ling, and you don't get to see what happened to Jet Li. Because he was stabbed, I think, like, in the shoulder or something like that. Somewhere around here. So they're both injured, and presumably Ling is dying, and he's going to go rush off to, I don't know, say goodbye to her? Save her? I don't know. It was actually best left unsaid there, because they could have done the whole melodramatic thing where he finds her and she's dying, she dies in his arms, and blah, blah, blah. It's been done a million times. I kind of liked it better in this case, not knowing what happened to them. But you could consider that a huge letdown, I guess. If you don't like unknowns, question marks at the end of movies, you're not going to like this. Or at least you're not going to like that part of the movie. Let's see, what else? What else is there to say about this movie? There's so much to it. I mean, I could go through the whole plot, but it's long, and there's so many little intricacies. I mean, all the fighting at the beginning. First he starts out with the East Bureau. There's a whole bunch of different fight scenes with them, and him just wiping them out wholesale, slaughtering them. And then once he gets to the West Bureau, all of his initial allies, his two buddies that are also martial artists. Oh, excuse me. Martial artists, they get wiped out trying to defend him, trying to in their first attack on the prince. Yeah, they get taken out, or at least one of them gets taken out. You never see the other one again, so I don't know. I would assume he died. It's hard to say. This is when you realize how badass the prince is, when he faces off with Jet Li the first time, because it's at the very least an even fight. After that, it switches over to the maid's story, where she's being chased because she's pregnant from one of the guards in the temple or something, and that's against the rules. Apparently they send armed men, a huge squad of armed men, to chase down one woman because she had a relationship with a guard or something. Who would care that much about a maid? I don't know. Maybe that kind of ties into the overarching theme at the end, or the overarching plot, her overarching plot, where she's an assassin. Maybe that didn't make any sense. Maybe it wasn't supposed to make any sense. I don't know. But yeah, they send this squad to go after her, and then Ling, Jet Li's love interest or whatever, finds her and rescues her in badass fashion. She kicks the crap out of those guards. Her fighting style, she uses a single sword, but it's like her wrist is made of putty. It's like, I mean, like, it's insanely fast, and it's really flashy looking. She just slices and dices them, basically. And then she takes out their leader and leaves him looking really bad on top of this, like, scaffolding or whatever, like attached to the scaffolding. And then she takes out his eye because he dares to look. She had blindfolded him and left him up there, and he goes to peek, and she's there sitting in front of him. She takes out his eye. But anyway, she rescues the maid. She brings her to the Dragon Inn, which apparently Ling owned the Dragon Inn back when she was a treasure hunter. And then she met Jet Li, and now she's obsessed with Jet Li, I guess. Something like that. She gave up the treasure hunting. I don't know. I missed some of it, I guess, probably. There's a lot of story here. But she shows up. She brings the maid, which was a mistake. The second group shows up. The bad guys, I don't know, squad of men. There's like sub-lieutenants, I guess, there, and they're all relatively tough. One of them takes on the dagger lady, who uses this giant naginata for that fight. I don't know why. But it looks really badass. She's a fairly little woman with this huge fucking massive weapon. And she's doing pretty good. That's the fight where the guy with the two swords shows up. The second in command of the prince's army or whatever shows up. And Jet Li takes him out. But yeah, their group shows up. The two thieves, the Tartars, they all show up separately, but they're all in cahoots because they're all treasure hunters. They're all trying to find the palace. And then Jet Li shows up. And he kind of takes control of the squad because he says that if they don't, the prince won't let them live, because Blade in the Wind is a dead ringer for the prince, and he's already impersonated him once. And also he wants the gold as well. The prince wants the gold, so he's not going to let any of them live. Even though they don't want to fight him, they just want to get the gold, they have to fight him. They have to help Jet Li. So they all kind of squad up and, you know, make this intricate plan where they're all going to separate and try to lure them off and fight them separately and all this stuff. And it's very fun to watch. I mean, like I said, they all have their own thing. And they're all really stylish and flashy. If there was a letdown, it's that the stakes seemed really high, but there was no real payoff for that. All the bad guys all the good guys are fine, and all the bad guys are dead at the end of the movie. I mean, the only one that is in any real jeopardy is Ling. And you don't get to see what happens to her. Presumably she dies. But unless you get to see it for your own eyes, you never really can't tell. I mean, this is a martial arts movie. There could be some magic voodoo juju juice or whatever the heck, herbal tea or whatever that can fix her right up. You know, you never know in this kind of movie. So maybe she died, but all the other heroes, all the other good guys are perfectly fine at the end of the movie, and they have their gold. And Blade in the Wind gets to be the prince. So there's no even pseudo, you know, unhappy ending here. There's no cost for everything they've been through. In movies like this, usually someone goes down, you know? Usually multiple people go down. And, you know, it's whatever you call it, poignant. You know, it makes everything else meaningful. All the struggle that they went through. Here, like I said, everyone's just hunky-dory at the end of the movie. So, I don't know, that was a little bit of a letdown for this type of movie. But like I said, the plot was really good, and it never slowed down much. Maybe a little bit of the early portion of the movie could have used a little bit more fighting, but once you get to the end, everyone's at each other's throats constantly, and once the finale hits, it's bombastically awesome. With all the sword fighting and the daggers flying and the razor wires and all that stuff, it's really nice. So yeah, I highly recommend this movie, especially if you like this type of movie. The foreign martial arts movie. It is subtitled. I think I saw that there was a subbed version, but that's not what I watched. I watched the subtitle version because listening to Jet Li speak in English is painful. I think he's not really a great actor even in his own language. Obviously, I don't speak their language, but he doesn't. There's not much emotion there. Not much comes across in his performance. I mean, obviously I can't understand what he's saying, but like his how he emotes, it's pretty bad. It's a dead fish. So I would assume that even in his own language, he's terrible. He's basically just there to beat the shit out of people. He's apparently a martial arts champion in real life. So that's what he's there for, not to speak. But in English movies, you have to listen to it. when it's either his voice or he's subbed or whatever, you have to listen to that crap, and it's terrible. So I really didn't want to watch this subbed. I'm perfectly happy to read the subtitles. That does not bother me at all. So that's the version I watched. And the subtitles are really good. They got across the meaning. There weren't any bad translations from what I saw. It looked really good. The dialogue. It looked like it was what it was supposed to be, if that makes sense. So yeah, really, really good movie. This is probably my favorite Jet Li movie now, although he's had quite a few good ones. This is probably my favorite, and like I said at the beginning, probably my favorite foreign martial arts film I've seen in years. Way back to like the early Jackie Chan movies were really good. But you know, I mean that's years and years ago. There's been a lot of really good stylish ones, but not as good as this. This had everything. This had everything you could want in this type of movie. There was romantic subplots, there was intrigue and betrayal, and really badass choreography, and really interesting characters. It all looked really nice. It had that huge climax where they're spinning around the tornado fighting. It's just a really great movie. Well worth watching. Apparently it was directed by Hark Sway? Is that how you say it? I'm gonna check what else he's done real quick. Flying Swords of Dragon Gate. Interesting, he doesn't actually do very many... Oh, never mind, here we go. Seven Swords TV show. Black Mask, okay. That was a really cheesy movie. Zoo Warriors, producer. No, that's not directing. Oh, I remember that. Right. I'm gonna have to do more of these because this is one of my favorite genres. But this one had what is her name? Zi Zhang? Zi Zhang, I think is how you say it. Yeah, she's in a lot of these, like Crossing Tiger and Dragon. She was the young apprentice, the one who learned from Chow Yun-fat. Zhang Ji. Apparently had it backwards. Right, they do it backwards. That's right. Yeah, Zhang Ji. So yeah, she was in that. But anyways, I'm gonna have to do more of these. But bottom line, really good movie. Really, really good movie. Flying Swords of Dragon Gate is, I believe, the full title. And apparently it was in 3D at IMAX. That must have been badass. I don't even like 3D, but this movie in 3D must have been insane. Because all the flying through the air and jumping and all that stuff. That must have been badass. But anyways, really good movie. Well worth a watch. 2 thumbs up. Watch the hell out of it. I'll see you guys next time.